Hey everyone, we are working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
That we're in this exciting stage. We're in our primes playing great football. Finding guys like Dexter and Brian Cook and Boye to really solidify that defense so the young guys can kind of rise up. We're really going to try to achieve what we want to achieve.
You know what? I don't even know where to begin. I genuinely don't know where to begin because what you just watched, Joe Burrow, the most fashion-forward quarterback in the National Football League, standing at the Met Gala, surrounded by celebrities and cameras and couture that costs more than most people's cars. And what does he talk about? Defense, execution, getting back on the field. That right there tells you everything you need to know about who Joe Burrow really is, underneath all the style, underneath all the swagger, underneath the fits and the magazine covers, and the Hollywood lifestyle. At the core of it, Joe Burrow is about one thing and one thing only: winning football games. And what's wild is that quote, that simple, clean, devastating quote he dropped to Vanity Fair at the Met Gala of all places, just blew the lid off the entire Cincinnati Bengals offseason conversation. I'm Dre. This is Dre Talk Sports. And if you are not buckled in right now, you need to fix that because we are going deep today. Let's set the scene first, because context is everything. The Cincinnati Bengals just came off one of the ugliest seasons in the Joe Burrow era. 6 wins, 11 losses. Their worst record since Burrow's rookie season, when nobody expected anything from them anyway. Back-to-back AFC Championship game appearances, a Super Bowl trip, a performance in Super Bowl 56 that had the entire football world convinced the Bengals were a dynasty in the making. And then, nothing. 3 straight years without a playoff appearance, 3 straight years of watching the roster erode around one of the most gifted quarterbacks on the planet. 3 straight years of the organization being timid, being passive, being exactly what you cannot afford to be when you've got a franchise quarterback in his prime with a ticking clock on his window. And Joe Burrow watched all of it. He processed all of it. And if you read between the lines of what he said at that Met Gala, he was very close, very, very close, to reaching a level of frustration that no franchise wants their quarterback to reach. Now here is where I want to give you my honest take, because that's what this channel is built on. No filter, no corporate spin, just real analysis. I think the Bengals were on the absolute razor's edge of losing Joe Burrow's trust. Not his contract, not his commitment to the city officially, but his belief. His genuine internal belief that the organization was serious about winning. And I don't say that lightly. Burrow signed his massive extension. He showed up every single day. He competed through injuries that would have ended lesser men's careers. He gave Cincinnati everything. And for a few years there, what did he get back? T.J. Slayton. Sheldon Rankins, who was never a nose tackle and was never going to function as one. Modest additions. The kind of roster construction that says we're okay with being decent when your quarterback is screaming, "I was born to be great." That's a dangerous disconnect. And Joe Burrow, for all his cool, for all his poise, is not a guy who just quietly accepts mediocrity. He just expresses his frustration in a more elegant way than most. When he said last January that getting better was paramount, that wasn't just a press conference answer. That was a message. A very clear, very pointed message. And this offseason, the Bengals finally heard it. The Dexter Lawrence trade is the move that changes everything. I want to be crystal clear about that. Everything. Because Dexter Lawrence isn't just a good football player. He is one of the most disruptive interior defensive linemen in the entire National Football League. When the Bengals sent their 10th overall pick to the New York Giants to acquire Lawrence and then immediately locked him into an extension, they didn't just upgrade their defensive line. They sent a signal to Joe Burrow, to the locker room, to the rest of the AFC. The signal was simple. We are not playing around anymore. And the ripple effects of that one move extend far beyond just Lawrence himself. Think about what a true nose tackle, a legitimate dominant double-team eating interior presence, does for everyone around him. Jonathan Allen gets cleaner looks. B.J. Hill gets one-on-one opportunities he hasn't seen in years. Myles Murphy and Shamar Stewart on the edges suddenly have a much more manageable path to the quarterback because offensive lines can't scheme against everybody when Dexter Lawrence is eating double teams in the middle. That's not an exaggeration. That's football physics. But here's something that I think gets slept on in this entire conversation, and I want to bring it to the surface because nobody is talking about it the way they should be. When Dexter Lawrence showed up to a community car event in Cincinnati, not long after the trade, barely knowing the city, not knowing the neighborhood, that meant something. One of his new teammates acknowledged it publicly and said it goes deeper than just showing up. He talked about how a little bit of leadership is shown in something like that, how teammates hanging out outside the locker room builds real chemistry. That kind of thing doesn't show up in a box score, but that is the DNA of a team that eventually wins in January and February. That is the intangible that separates franchises that are good from franchises that are great. And the fact that Dexter Lawrence walked in the door and immediately embedded himself in the community before a single padded practice tells you that Cincinnati didn't just acquire a football player, they acquired a culture piece. Now let's talk about the rest of this offseason, because Lawrence wasn't the only move. Brian Cook coming in to add depth and versatility to the secondary. The signing of Boye Mafe to bolster the pass rush from the edge. Joe Flacco being brought back. And look, I know some people roll their eyes at the Flacco conversation. But what Flacco did for that locker room when he came in last season, injecting belief into a group that had essentially packed it in emotionally, that's not nothing. That's actually something. And the Bengals recognized it. They recognized that continuity, chemistry, and belief are currencies just as valuable as raw talent sometimes. On top of all of this, they retained DJ Turner and Dax Hill in the secondary, with Hill apparently expressing he wants to play outside cornerback, and the Bengals being aligned with that vision. That's the kind of organizational communication, player and front office on the same page, that has been missing in Cincinnati for stretches of the past few years. My personal opinion? The Bengals still have a hole at linebacker that concerns me. I'll say it directly. The interior of that defense, the basement and the foundation, as one analyst put it, is dramatically improved, but the first floor, the linebacker core, remains a question mark. They drafted 2 linebackers last year who did not pan out the way the organization hoped, and rather than going out aggressively in free agency to address it, they've essentially kicked that can. Now, maybe there's a signing still coming. Maybe the draft addressed it. But if I'm being real with you, if I'm being fully honest the way this channel demands, that linebacker room has the potential to be the soft underbelly of this defense, even with Lawrence clogging things up inside. That's my concern. Hold on to it. We'll see if it gets addressed. But here's the bigger picture that we need to zoom out and appreciate. And I want to do this because sometimes in the day-to-day noise of offseason moves and roster decisions and trade grades, we lose sight of the stakes. The Joe Burrow clock is real. It has always been real. Every elite quarterback in the NFL has a window, a finite, precious window, where their physical prime, their roster construction, their coaching situation, and the competitive landscape of their conference align in a way that gives them a legitimate shot at a championship. For Joe Burrow, that window is right now, not in 3 years, not after the next rebuild, right now. He is in his prime. He is one of 3 or 4 quarterbacks in the entire league who can single-handedly elevate a team's ceiling by multiple tiers. And the Bengals, for the past few off-seasons, were treating that window like it was going to stay open forever. It doesn't. It never does. And I genuinely believe, that some combination of Burrow's body language, his carefully worded public comments, and private conversations within the building finally woke this front office up in a way that previous seasons hadn't quite managed. The trade of the 10th overall pick was the proof. You don't trade a top 10 pick, one of the most valuable assets in professional football, unless you are fully committed to the now. Unless you have looked at your situation and said, clearly and without ambiguity, our window is open and we are going to throw everything we have at it. That's what that trade said. And Joe Burrow heard it loud and clear, because when he told Vanity Fair, at the Met Gala, surrounded by fashion royalty, in a moment that had nothing to do with football, that he was really excited about the moves, that it was exciting to see the initiative from everybody in the organization, that finding guys like Dexter Lawrence and Brian Cook and Boye Mafe was what the team needed. That's not a canned PR answer. Joe Burrow doesn't give canned answers. That's a man who feels his organization finally matching his own urgency. And that matters more than any individual signing. And then there's that final line, the one that didn't get nearly enough attention, the one that, in my opinion, is actually more revealing than the excitement quote. After talking about the Met Gala, after acknowledging that this is fun, that the fashion and the event and all of it is genuinely enjoyable, Joe Burrow said, "But soon it's going to be our job to go out on the field and execute." Read that again. Sit with it. This is a man who fully enjoys his life, who embraces the world beyond football, who has built a personal brand and a personal identity that extends well past the game. And in the middle of fashion's biggest night, surrounded by everything that has nothing to do with football, his mind is already drifting back to the field, back to execution, back to the job. That is not a man who is distracted. That is not a man who is checked out. That is not a man whose off-season habits or Los Angeles lifestyle or magazine covers mean he cares any less about winning than the day he walked into Paycor Stadium. That is a man who is laser-focused on what this offseason was really about, building a roster capable of executing when it matters. And that's what makes this moment so electric as a Bengals fan, as a football fan, as somebody who watches this league with a critical eye. Everything is aligned in a way it hasn't been for 3 years. The defense has real, legitimate, proven talent at every level, with a potential soft spot at linebacker that still needs monitoring. The front office made the kind of aggressive, window-embracing moves that signal genuine commitment to competing right now. And the franchise quarterback, the guy the entire operation is built around, publicly, genuinely, and clearly feels good about where things stand. That's not something you can fake. Joe Burrow is not a politician. He doesn't perform satisfaction he doesn't feel. When he says he's excited, he's excited. When he says he's proud of the organization's initiative, he means it. And when he says it's going to come down to executing on the field, that's him accepting the weight. That's him saying the excuses are gone, the resources are there, and now it falls on us. That's the energy of a team that's about to be dangerous. That's the energy of a quarterback who has been sharpening his edge through frustration and is now ready to cut. The AFC better be paying attention, because the Cincinnati Bengals just reminded everyone that they are not a rebuilding project. They are not a cautionary tale. They are not a franchise content with moral victories and close calls. They are a team with a generational quarterback, a rebuilt defense, and a front office that finally remembered what time it is. We'll see how this plays out when the pads go on. We'll see if the linebacker room holds up. We'll see if the new pieces mesh the way the organization is hoping. But right now, in this moment, the vibe in Cincinnati is different. And Joe Burrow, standing at the Met Gala in his finest, let the whole world know he's ready to get back to work. That's the tape. That's the story. That is Dre Talk Sports giving you the full, unfiltered breakdown. Now listen, if you made it this far, you already know what time it is. Smash that like button right now, and I mean right now, because this kind of deep dive analysis takes real work, and your support is what keeps this channel running. Drop a comment below. I want to know, do you think the Bengals have done enough this offseason to get back to the playoffs? Or do you think that linebacker room is going to haunt them? Let's have the real conversation down there. And if you are not subscribed to Dre Talk Sports yet, hit that subscribe button and ring that bell, because we are not slowing down. Every move, every quote, every piece of drama this league produces, we are going to be right here breaking it down. No filter, no spin. Just real talk. Until next time, I'm Dre. Let's get it.